right. Well, welcome everyone to our roundtable / webinar about getting us all back to school in the time of COVID-19, and that means, physically back to school, because I think most or all of us have been able to kind of cope as we had a quick need to deal with the COVID-19 crisis, and as we know, we want to kind of get folks back physically together and not just do it on Zoom calls like this. And so let me introduce, see our list of panelists today. They are the experts from their respective institutions, and they're your peers. And so I'll just ask Mark if you could do a 40-second introduction of yourself and your bona fides. That would be great. We'll go through the list.
Sounds good. Hi, I'm Mark Fitzgerald. I am the Executive Director of Customer Care at Boise State University. And at Boise State, we've got a large public institution of about 26,000 students that we work to educate. And so there I'm responsible for the help desk, desktop support, audiovisual solutions, and the procurement, IT procurement.
Thank you. Welcome. Jose.
My name is Josie Taglia. I'm the Director of Technology at the Buckley School. The Buckley School is a co-ed K-12 private school located in Sherman Oaks, California. We have 830 students, 135-ish full-time employees, and about 70 classrooms. I oversee applications, database, audiovisual, cybersecurity, help desk team, systems, networking, and educational technology. Been there for 14 years, started as level 1 tech support, did as a middle school computer science teacher, outdoor education chaperone, entrepreneur and tech club advisor, moved on to being a network administrator, and now director of technology for the past 9 years.
Excellent. Nicole Gordon Rec from Lightworks.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I am the education consultant with Lightworks. I'm a former elementary school teacher, and I now conduct training and professional development as well as consultations with schools regarding the effective integration of technology into different kinds of learning spaces.
And as my colleague at Lightworks, if I have technical problems, she stands ready to jump in and help moderate if necessary. Rudi Ideas is with us with San Diego State.
Hi everyone, Rudi Ideas. I'm Associate Director, Learning Spaces and Faculty Support at San Diego State University. And I've been privileged here for a good 13 years now this year. So I get to work with a great team here to support our learning environment, our LMS. I've also been heavily involved with our SDSU's virtual immersive teaching and learning initiative. So now even more, as you can imagine, we're looking into more virtual labs and virtual content. So yeah, and we'll definitely dive into the learning environment and how we're definitely adapting here for the upcoming fall semester.
Wonderful, thank you. Steve.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Schneck. I'm the Vice President of IT Services for TCS Education System. TCS, we're a nonprofit system of 6 colleges. We have about 10,000 students, and we are in Illinois, Texas, Washington, D.C., and California. My role, I'm accountable for all IT infrastructure, security, AV operations, and all student-facing IT support across all of our locations. I've been with the system about 15 months, so not as long as some of the tenures that you have, but I've been in IT over 25 years, and I've spent about the last 14 years working exclusively with schools and educational organizations.
Great, and then last but certainly not least, John.
Hello, I'm John Manwearing. I'm the Assistant Director for Learning Innovations at Washington State University. Washington State University is a multi-campus system. I'm on the Pullman campus here in the state. We have also an online campus, which has been a boon in their preparations and continuity during these interesting times. And we have about 134 classrooms on this campus that we maintain. We have the learning management system. We also have a number of instructional designers that help with supporting faculty in various teaching modalities. And I've been with the university for 18 years. And so I've seen a lot of change, a lot of unusual things. This is by far the most unusual thing that I think we've encountered here, and probably you all feel the same way wherever you are.
Yes, we all live in interesting times. Just as a point of order, I'm told that for some reason, folks' pictures and the names are not correct for the attendees. I see the names as I'd expect them, so I don't know what's going on, but we'll just ask folks to pardon that little technical glitch there. We are going to spend about 40 minutes having a conversation among the panelists. We have the Q&A button is live on our Zoom webinar here, so if you have questions or contributions that you might want to share, go ahead and put those in there. We will try to, or I will try to bring in relevant questions as they come up during the conversation, but then we hope to also have a Q&A session towards the end. We'll see how that all goes. If the questions are answered, that's fine. We might continue a little bit longer, and we'll do this all in the remaining 50 or so minutes that we have left. So I think I'm going to start with Jose, and I'll kind of open, but ask folks to join in as they feel appropriate. You know, you are at an elite institution, college preparatory, high school, and so that's why you're here joining, I think, your colleagues in higher ed, but this is, you know, the audience here is higher ed, and we're K through 12 and, you know, a higher ed, and I think, but we all face the same issues. My question to you is, what are the key questions and problems that you're trying to answer / solve at the Buckley School right now?
That is the $1,000,000 question. What are we going to solve for here? There's many unknowns at the moment. When we started off, you know, I was tasked by the head of school to come up with a model that would allow collaboration between those on campus and off campus. They need to be seen and heard on both sides, whether that's on campus or off campus. This was my guide when looking at both hardware and software options. I was told off the bat to plan for a hybrid model, which is probably the most challenging of the models, because it's sort of how do you go? You're either all off campus or on campus. Considering the already full plate the school has with the launch of a new system, student information system, the school database, I needed to also address some concerns of training teachers and students on whatever this new platform solution is, and which is why I focused on our existing synchronous platform, Zoom. We're a Zoom school. And for asynchronous learning, teachers are already using our existing LMS. However, we are reviewing ways to improve to a certain extent on those. So that's kind of been the biggest challenge. That's the summary of what we're trying to solve for. Then you want me to get into details as far as what we've come up with and how we've approached it?
Well, let's see if any of our other panelists have, you know, just maybe we're all on the same page. Are there any differences or just amplifying Jose's thoughts on the task presented to you?
Yeah, I'll add too that I think definitely, you know, the questions that we get is how can we continue to keep that high level of quality of instruction, you know, virtually, and keeping the students highly engaged. So, you know, before we were making a big impact with our active learning classrooms, you know, team-based learning, and of course with Zoom you can do breakouts, but how do we continue to approach that? So. And I'm sure we're going to dive into, you know, what we're doing here, but definitely, you know, tools that Jose is speaking about, Zoom, making sure our LMS is also being used appropriately, or you know, us providing coaching for our instructors on you know, using that you know, even better. Yeah, and other just tools that our instructors are used to using in these high-rich classrooms. So, you know, I think we're all kind of on the same boat here with Jose's comments.
Great. Steve?
Yeah, I would say I would very much echo those comments. You know, we talk a lot about just basic student and faculty safety. You know, making sure that we're able to accommodate a number of different learning scenarios, and so that's very important. We also talk about security as well. So in our situation we have various programs, nursing. We issue law degrees and other degrees where some of the requirements of those programs don't lend itself to a hybrid or a remote model. And so we're trying to understand how can we factor out those elements. So a great example would be our nursing program. How do we factor out the elements where people have to come into the classroom? There really is no sort of virtual equivalent of being able to go in and do some of the simulations. And so for us, across so many states, we need to understand not only the federal, but also the state and county and city requirements, which would seem to be shifting all over the place. So for us, it's been extremely important for all of our colleges and our leadership to get together to make sure that we're talking through all these issues, factor out the commonalities, like, hey, let's have a best practice across, you know, all the locations. Let's not have every single college and campus invent the same thing, but then ensuring that we respect and understand that there are differences, again, geographic differences within the government, and then also just the curriculum and the various regulatory agencies and accreditation agencies and what they're able to allow.
Thank you. John, similar up in Washington State?
Very similar up in Washington State here. We're having discussions all the time about how we can plan for these things since we're a multi-campus system where we deliver instruction across the state. Another wrinkle to that is that not all parts of the state are in the same phase. So that's an interesting challenge when you've got students that can be face-to-face in one corner of the state and they cannot be face-to-face in the other side of the state. So we're really planning for everything at the moment. And that is a challenge by itself. And it really flies in the face of trying to do something uniform, trying to provide the students with some sort of continuity across their classes. So we want to be able to have a common set of tools so students aren't scattered, having to have, you know, many sign-ins, many different technologies that they're using to accomplish similar tasks. So we have stood up several training sessions across the summer time that we have, which, I mean, really, sometimes it feels like summer is endless. Right now, it feels like it's ended. We've got to be on it. And so training in conjunction with a common set of tools is very important for us right now.
Mark, cover everything, or you have something unique that you're trying to address?
Just one more thing to add. Certainly everything everybody stated is stuff we're going through as well. But I also thought of that we helped a lot of students that did not have access to technology, especially in rural parts of Idaho, be able to access things. Well, we did that with the equipment we had. And so now that we have to have the equipment back on campus and working in this hybrid model, now we're scrambling to get additional equipment in times of government holdbacks and budget cuts. So it's been a challenge in addition to the not knowing what all to plan for.
So Nicole, you have perspective among our various customers. Anything different or among the things you've learned? Have we covered the need or something else that comes to mind?
You know, just the idea of having to decide without fully knowing what the future entails, whether or not these schools will be repurposing existing technologies or investing in new technologies to support a possible hybrid system. Kinds of questions that are being posed to us. So again, lots of work with different institutions to kind of decide whether or not it makes more sense to take existing technologies and use them until we have more answers, or invest in higher quality technology that is, you know, possibly more, you know, future proof, if you will, that will be in alignment with the possibility of continued online learning and perhaps even online learning on a greater scale.
Terrific. So I'm going to go back to Jose with the next question, but I by no means want this to be a linear conversation. I probably will not call out people's names, so feel free to jump in. It all depends on how everybody's Brady Bunch appears on the screen, so there is no real order here. So Jose, I think the challenge has been posed by everybody, and how is your institution, how are you personally going about trying to solve for getting back to school?
Sure. And before I go and get into the nitty gritty and the details and whatnot, I want to reemphasize what John said, and it's plan for everything. It's unknown. Just like we pride ourselves to prep students for the real world and get all these subjects in their face, art and whatnot. You might use these, you might not. We're in the same situation. We're in the same boat. You got to prep for everything, and it's easier said than done, considering it's already June and here we are opening the school around the corner. But you have to try to prep for everything, or even try to at least point things out. Even if the CDC clears all schools, or some teachers, families, students will refuse to return to campus. Then what? Doesn't you have to prep for that. Yeah, it doesn't matter if we have all the blessing that we can. So there are some key things that as I go through what I've considered in detail, some takeaways. So if you're writing notes and whatnot, some things that have sparked ideas in my mind that address, PD, that professional development, that address finance, and arms race for purchasing devices and whatnot. It almost seems impossible, but one thing, and I'm part of the Atlas. I'm a part of the Atlas, Association of Technology Leaders in Independent Schools. And they run through this checklist. One of the things that sparked an idea for me is, shared devices, and what do we do with those? If you have labs, if you have laptop carts, iPad carts, and whatnot, what are you doing with those? At that point, they had recommended that you pull them, you remove them, and sparked my question about, like, what do I do with those? And that's when I kind of thought, well, I have X amount of classrooms, X amount of shared devices, labs. I have iMacs, I have all-in-one Dells and lab computers, and I was already struggling with the idea of how do I want to do Zoom rooms, because Zoom rooms it's a Zoom, and how do I accomplish that if I have to purchase devices? How do I get these devices? Everyone's going to want devices. I don't know what the lead times are, ETAs. So when I decided, okay, I'm going to probably pull the iMacs, what I do with them, that's when the light bulb came on, and I said, well, I can probably use those for Zoom rooms. And alternative, again, I addressed that there could be laptops. That's my plan B. But with that all said and done, I still today have to speak to division heads and department chairs, leaders, to figure out how this is going to impact those programs. Somebody has said, well, we already finished we finished the year without using those labs. We can do it then, but it's still a conversation that needs to be had on how this is going to impact them. But that was a great idea. Again, there's got to be this discussions, conversations to be had with those division department leaders, chairs, or deans, and then reusing. The other thing that generated something about when I was talking to the facilities director is we have 70 classrooms. We could possibly have more than 70. We're trying to use every real estate possible to create classroom spaces. So one of the things was, again, to the reusing of things, another light bulb came up, and I said, well, what about reusing campus displays? If you have digital signage, you have classrooms outfitted with some extra displays, which we do, reuse those. How essential is digital signage? Is it the end of the world if you don't have digital signage next year or the part of the year? So right now, those are sort of the plans, ideas that I have in mind for if we do modular classrooms or large or outside areas, being able to use those for class spaces. And maybe I'll have to purchase some TV stands, and I'll be stuck with TV stands once I remount the other ones, but so be it. At least I don't have to purchase projector, worry about sort of the display of what's going to be used for those large areas. Other things to consider are added bandwidth as well. You know, consider increasing your internet bandwidth. If you know, only you know how good your bandwidth is, and assess that. Configuring QoS for the video conferencing traffic. A question is, do outdoor or large areas have wireless coverage in case they are used for classes? So these are things that you should already be figuring out. If you are a Zoom school, consider this thing called Zoom Meeting Connector. It acts kind of like the Apple caching server. All Zoom traffic routes to this Zoom Meeting Connector instead of the cloud. So something that you know you can deploy. And so these are the things, before I go into nitty-gritty of what we've done, that we've sort of been considering.
Okay.
Not sure if, before I go into details about.
Well, I might throw it out to some of the other folks here. I guess I'm hearing, you know, constraints, time, money, maybe the access to product, to resources to get the work done. And, you know, to me, that makes me anxious. But it feels like, you know, there's a real sense of urgency required. You know, we're all scrambling here. How does what Jose expressed, and maybe any specifics from the other panelists here, what are you doing? Have you just been able to decide to, you know, what your solutions are going to be? Generally speaking, you may not need to know. I mean, if you want to share brands, that's fine. But like, what are you going to do to make this happen? And everybody's muted, so go ahead.
I'll jump in. So I would also echo those thoughts. And what we did was, just with the way my brain works, when people say hybrid learning, my next question is, well, what do you mean by hybrid learning? And so I think everyone had a different idea or vision in their head as to what that would mean and what teachers could do. So the first thing that I did is I broke it out into scenarios, and I said, okay, so let's think about use cases. If you're in the room and you're a student, can you see remote students? Can you hear them? Or if you're a remote student, can you ask questions? Does that require a moderator, or will that be over the PA? And so we worked into about 3 or 4 different scenarios, and then we reflected just high level estimates saying, okay, well, if you want kind of a low technology room where, you know, people remotely can kind of listen in and go into chat and ask questions, that's one scenario. If you want to make it so that the instructor is kind of, you know, pinned to the podium and they have a standard microphone, that's another one. And then finally we had our fully immersive, you know, hybrid learning environment. And so literally it kind of reminded me of an old Consumer Reports grid where it says yes, no, you know, I can do this, yes, no, and you kind of go down. And then we associated that with cost, just to have each of our college presidents really understand what it is they're signing up for and what the cost, whether it's coming out of CARES Act or wherever those funds are coming, and then they can make an educated decision. Then we had to go back and say, okay, great, now can we get the equipment, can we get the labor, and I'm sure that'll be another topic of our conversation here. But it was very useful for us to break down the trade-offs that they will see, and some of the campus presidents said, okay, I'll have 3 level 1 rooms, I'll have 5 level 2 rooms, and they kind of specified it. And then that helped us more in the aggregate to be able to plan all of our room conversions. And then the final thing I'll mention is then creating a checklist to go back to see the current state of each classroom, because as I'm sure is true with the other panel members here, is that your starting point might be different, and then you've got to kind of match it up. So that was our overall process, was just to kind of break it down into requirements and then kind of move it forward from there.
Excellent, thank you. John, Rudi, Mark, any input?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Rudi.
Oh, okay. I'll provide some input here. What we're doing at San Diego State, you know, every year we're always used to you know, upgrading our classrooms, and we have close to 200 classrooms here at SDSU. And this year we were up against, you know, remodeling 20 classrooms, but, you know, of course all this happened. So we had that budget in place. What we ended up doing is we said, okay, well, let's take that budget. And of course, you know, we were trying to get ahead of the game, you know, everyone here. And we started putting our parts list together for this hybrid approach, you know, and of course, everyone has a different adaptation to this hybrid approach. So what we're doing is we're basically adding, you know, a PTZ camera, a ceiling microphone, And the microphone situation was definitely a game changer for us, because at that time, we were going with this, just to get into products, we were going with the Shure microphone that was just, pretty expensive, but, had really high quality microphone array system. And a product came out, which is a Sony MS, I can't remember the exact model number, but it's also ceiling mounted microphone. And for us, that was definitely a game changer, because then what we can do is, the cost was lower. We were able to make a bigger impact across our 200 classrooms. And we were able to outfit close to about 80 classrooms, which is roughly around 64% of our classrooms here at SDSU. And then keeping in mind that we wanted to make as touchless as possible, because now instructors don't want to use what we call, our rooms were mostly outfitted what we call the Madonna mics, the ones that go around your ear. And so you can only imagine, right? Nobody's going to want to wear that. Nobody's going to want to hold a handheld microphone or a lapel and all that good stuff. So we were trying to eliminate some touch technology, and at the same time, part of the feedback that we were getting is that a lot of instructors wanted to use, all of our instructors here are very used to using the ceiling mounted document cameras. We use Wolf Vision here, and so they found that a lot of the times, being able to use the ceiling document camera via Zoom and have that picture of themselves as well being broadcast was a big need. And so that's part of our hybrid approach here. At the same time, we are working with our facilities folks to make sure that we reduce seating capacity in the event that we do start bringing in students. And so we calculated roughly anywhere between 25 to 30% capacity in each room. And as you can imagine, we have 500 seat classrooms. The capacity of that versus a 30-seat classroom. We're also putting our instructors through a summer institute flex training, so that they can also get coaching and feedback on how to use the LMS. If you are going to go on campus and do the in-person, how do you rotate the students in? How many? All those pedagogical strategies are also being reviewed during this training. So yeah, and then just another fact too, for us here, the first phase of bringing students back, we have roughly around 230 courses coming back this fall, which is roughly around 4,000 students in comparison to our normal 36 to 37,000 student population that we have here on campus. So that's a very small amount. And then I guess, well, not I guess, but we're also trying to work with facilities to create some sort of a cleaning cycle, identifying those rooms that are being used and how often do you clean them. And so that's a whole other topic that I think we can be addressed. But yeah, that's our approach here at San Diego State.
Thank you. John, Mark, anything to add? You gentlemen, your institutions?
I think the only thing I would add to that is, in addition to the hybrid and the high flex that have been discussed here, we have embraced this idea that we can do a sort of a boot camp over the summer, so that faculty who find themselves in one of these populations that may not want to be face-to-face with 30 students every day, or has a family member, or whatever the circumstance, that they can move their class into a completely online asynchronous environment. That's one of the strategies. So really for us, we have what I would call three strategies. We have the online only, we have the face-to-face, and you're rotating your student cohort through to keep it under 50 for us. And then the third is this hybrid with synchronous via Zoom. We are also a Zoom campus. And so those are the three approaches we're taking. And of course, we sound very similar to many of you, where we're trying to work out the logistics around that, how you get students to and from the classroom in a safe manner, how you do the cleaning cycle in a safe manner, the signage and messaging strategy when you bring students on campus, to ensure that everybody's being as compliant as possible in that. We also are, we have an application that we want students to download and install where they self-assess and attest to that each day about their health. So to further encourage people to not come to class if they're not feeling well, they need to self-attest every day before they come on campus.
Yeah, that's a whole interesting discussion. There are some questions in the Q&A that, if we have time, we'll get into that. Mark, do you have anything to share in terms of the classroom hybrid approach, or anything else that you've heard so far? And you're muted, sir. You're muted. Let's see if I can unmute you. Nope, he may have frozen. We'll come back. So Jose, I know you kind of set the table for this part of the conversation, but I feel like I know that you had some things to share about what you're going to go do. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, so I have put together a video, and if you haven't seen it, I'm gonna go ahead and drop that on the chat for you to watch later and bookmark. But in that video, you'll see some of our middle school teacher and some of our students were luckily able to capture that before school was out. The room is about a 600 square foot room, and I have actually also tested this in a 675 square foot room. So this is a hybrid tech gear that we were strongly considering. That process before getting there, I was looking at anything that was up to $500 range as far as a video camera, microphone camera, and there's some limitations on that. But throughout my listservs, and I hate to throw manufacturers and models.
That's okay. I just didn't. Yeah.
This is why a lot of people are here, because
absolutely. I didn't mean to restrict that. I just don't. You don't need to get too specific if you don't want to.
In that range, I've been hearing a lot about IPVO and InSwan dock cams. I was looking at webcams, but I think the dock cams are very popular right now in that range. Then I was looking at a lot of things up to a $1,000 range, and I played around with the Meeting Owl Pro. Don't confuse it with the Meeting Owl. It has to be the Meeting Owl Pro. That'll get you better. It has better specs. I'm currently playing around with the Kandao, K-A-N-D-A-O, Kandao Meeting 360, which is very similar to the Owl. I also tried the Swivel, and then some Logitech webcams and whatnot. But the reason why I was focused on the Meeting Owl Pro, Kandao, and the Swivel is because it can sort of tracks the teacher, and it doesn't put you in sort of the $1,000 range. Some can argue with that, but beyond that, I was looking at the auto tracking cameras, which now you're over $2,500, and looking at something like that. Some of them don't come with built-in mic, so the cost keeps adding up to it. And again, while I'm playing around with this, I'm still trying to finalize, between the Meeting Owl, the Kandao, reasons why I didn't go with the Swivel. There's a lot of touch. There's a lot of things here and there. There's a lot on the faculty, which is why kind of veered away from it. But I've heard some schools being successful with it. They're going with the Swivel. That's fine. But I'm trying to see if there's ways to enhance what some limitations are. I'm looking at enhancing the microphone, whether I go with the Meeting Owl or not. One microphone I'm looking at right now is the Acoustic Magic Voice Tracker 2. It's about $300. Touchless. It can be mounted. It can be sitting at a teacher's desk. I've seen a lot of universities use this for their lecture halls and whatnot. So I'm trying to experiment with that to improve the audio and the audio pickup. Again, we're an existing Zoom school, so I was contemplating on creating Zoom accounts for each classroom versus the Zoom rooms, because there's a big price difference. But it's on the teacher to get this. I found that doing it that way, it's on the teacher to get the settings right, select the correct speakers, make sure that the camera is selected, the microphone, the displays, and then this could complicate things when they're moving from room to room, if they're going to, again, sort of like up in the air whether they're going to do that. And this is why I strongly considered the Zoom rooms. It's intuitiveness for the teachers that already know the Zoom. And again, we have to consider that there's going to be teachers, there's going to be substitutes, proctors, classroom managers, or glorified babysitters, or however you want to, name people that are actually going to probably be sitting in. And maybe there's a scenario where I'm a teacher, I have my 10 kids, my cohort of 10 or whatever it is, 15, 16, and maybe in another classroom there's my other one, or and I'm able to teach the ones in the front of me, the classroom, and also possibly the ones at home. So I didn't want a lot on the teachers. This requires a dedicated computer and an iPad controller to start the meeting. There's no need for the teacher to connect their computer or launch their software. You can literally just walk into the room and start the meeting. Everything turns on, and you're not even using the laptop or the computer just yet. You only use it until when you want to share with your students. So another good benefit of the Zoom rooms, and again, I'm addressing this as Zoom rooms, and some of you might not be a Zoom school, I'm sorry. It's sort of just to give you ideas of where you can wirelessly share your screen with the students on campus. So if you dictate when you share your wireless, when you share, it's going to be on the projector. And obviously for remote users, it's via Zoom. The camera, microphone, and video displays are set up for the teachers. Teacher doesn't have to worry about these settings. In our case, the iMac and the video, when you see it, the iMac, which sits on the teacher's desk, will display the grid view. So the teacher is able to see the students at home right in front of them. The projector will display the active speaker. So if the student is talking or whoever the active speaker is, they're on the projector, they're visible, and you're able to hear them. And when the teacher shares, again, the display from the projector goes from the active user to whatever the teacher is sharing. And iPad controllers are very familiar to what they're used to, the share and the manage participants and whatnot. So there's no need to learn a different platform or control. Just a little bit of, and again, when you have time, just watch the video
so that video I will share when we post this video, because I think we may not have the chat enabled other than for the participants. So if that's not visible to you, apologize about that. Nicole, I'm not sure we heard from you in terms of what you're seeing, and Jose kind of got into how you set things up and whether it's universal or by teacher and whether you need to move classrooms. Do you have any insights on that in the institutions you've been working with?
The most popular questions that I've been receiving and the most kind of asked about technology are the tracking cameras and also microphone technologies. And is it going to be enough to use the existing microphone possibly and that exists in a teacher's laptop? Do we use Zoom to record and send a recording to the classmates who couldn't make the live class, or do we use another form of screencasting? It's mostly been what kinds of camera technologies, and can we repurpose existing cameras that are on our laptops and whatnot?
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot about repurposing, I think, and this is, we have a very limited time to figure this out, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like we're going to be able to get to perfect. I think it sounds like we need to get to good enough, and part of that is where are we? One of our panelists said, and what do we have, and can we repurpose that for what we need in the short term? Maybe get us through to a longer term plan, and budgeting, of course, is a big part of that. You're repurposing some of the monies that we're going to go do something else. Well, we're going to spend it on this because you don't have time to go back to the well for approvals, I imagine, and such. Okay, great. Is there anything folks have looked at that they said that is absolutely not going to work? Like we reject, we researched something and we said, no bueno, can't do it. I think Jose, you mentioned a scenario, but any other folks that have looked at things and go, don't do this?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's not a don't do, but it's along those lines. As we were looking at the voice microphone situation, we wanted to get a better recording quality for either Panopto or for Zoom or things like that. And so we were laser focused on that. And in talking with my wife and her brother, who's a speech scientist, they said, well, how are your teachers going to project, especially if they have masks on?
Mm.
And I said, well, that's a good point. We probably should stick with the lav microphones that we were thinking about. And it was really almost an inspired conversation, because it wasn't 2 weeks later that this was running through our faculty saying, hey, if we're going to be required to do masks, even in our standard classrooms, how are you going to do voice augmentation? And it's like, oh yeah, we've got this under control. And it made us look like we knew what we were doing, but it was just decisions by the seat of our pants. But as we look at it, it's like, how do you make things touch free, but do voice augmentation and do quality recording? There's going to have to be gives and takes all over this as we're making concessions to put in the right solutions.
Any other folks similar? Yeah, go ahead, please.
David, just to piggyback on what Mark was saying, I think that the audio quality is a huge factor, because we're forgetting that there are going to be students in the classroom, quite possibly as well. Those students' voices could easily be heard. So the existing microphone systems that may be in place may not have the capacity to kind of bury the sounds of students in the background. So we're seeing a lot of questions related to having quality audio to ensure that the students who are not live in class are able to hear what's being said, not only by the instructor, but also at certain times by the students.
Yeah.
So lots of questions about, do we put in ceiling microphones? Do the students each have microphones as well? Is the teacher mic'd? And then there's that question.
There are a lot of options, like the swivel has its own markers and microphones that you can place around, and students have to, but I think that students have to push a button or whatnot, or the teacher has. But looking at all that, I was looking at sort of the lavalier or the Madonna mics or what have you. But at the end of the day, I was also considering like something that is, touchless, right? That's why I was throwing out this sort of voice tracker microphone to enhance, because if you see the video, you watch the video, the audio is okay. I'm sitting in the back and I watch, asking some questions, and it's okay. But I got to realize and be realistic that, I'm probably projecting more than, a shy student is going to project. And so, which is why I'm kind of looking at some alternatives for audio, so that students are able to be heard. I've been seeing a lot of people trying to experiment with the closed captioning from Zoom to see if it tries together. But with closed captioning, again, it's an audio issue. And again, maybe it comes down to something that doesn't cost money, other than maybe it's a training thing where someone's asking a question, Jimmy's asking me a question, and you train the professor, the faculty member, to repeat that question. So for the students at home to hear, and again, it could be as simple as a solution as that, so that the professor gets retrained to repeat the question. Just like if you're an MC, you're holding a mic and we can't hear you, or you don't have a mic, let me repeat that question because somebody asked me a question and the people in the back couldn't hear me. It could be something as easy as that, or maybe you can go with trying to find an actual microphone solution.
I would kind of echo what Jose is saying. I think it's important to look at some of the lower tech solutions. And one of the great examples that hit us pretty hard in the spring when this started happening, we started experimenting with our really awesome Poly Eagle Eye 2 mic systems. And as soon as you put a mask over your face, that solution is toast. It's done. It doesn't work right anymore. And so that it doesn't know where to track, and it just kind of loses its mind. So being able to train the faculty and the instructors in these kind of basic etiquette type of scenarios when they're conducting a hybrid class, I think is really important. The technology is not always going to save you in that. I think the technology is a great bridge, but some of these solutions, you know, as soon as you put a mask on, or they're pointed the wrong way, or you separate your seats as far as possible to get that 6-foot radius around a student, they're going to struggle.
I also saw you shake your head when there was reference to maybe doing some of the language translation into text. Have you had poor results with that, or what's been your experience?
It depends on the class. So if you've got a class with a lot of technical jargon, we have a vet med school here, that automatic solution doesn't work so well. So we have third-party integrations to deal with those kinds of things. Basic discussion points without technical jargon, it does okay, which is great for, you know, for no cost. But if you have a student that has a documented accommodation, either in the room or afar, then you've got to bring a little bit more effort to that to get an accurate translation, transcript, whatever the case may be.
So we are getting some questions, and some of them are around training. And I know a couple of you mentioned how you're doing a boot camp, or I guess I'll just ask, how much concern is there about maybe a percentage of the instructors not being able to adapt or adopt what you're doing, and what are you doing training-wise or otherwise to bring all of your instructors along, and perhaps even the students, to be able to use these solutions that you're going to roll out? Don't all talk at once now. So I
think we're in a good situation that all of the tools that we're using were available before. So we had the things documented, we had training materials presented and available. Now it's just getting it to more people than we're using in the past. So one of our tools, Panopto, it was already in every room, campus-wide, ready to roll. Yeah, we're upgrading the microphones, we're upgrading the cameras to make it a better experience than it was. But now it's getting them into the hands of the professors, and luckily they're keen and eager to learn at this point, rather than they'll get around to it.
I guess, you know, we kind of our conversation here jumped right into a hybrid classroom, so it kind of begs the question, or kind of confirms that most of at least our panelists are going to plan for a hybrid type back to school approach. And is it decided on all of your institutions that students and instructors are coming back in some fashion? There are some folks on the call here who are asking about, what about, you know, government mandates to not get together? I guess maybe by a show of hands, is your institution planning for a return to the classroom and expecting a return this fall?
I would say some of mine.
Yeah, I'm seeing some of that. Okay, so yeah, so I think earlier we said you got to plan for everything, but clearly a hybrid approach is what I'm hearing is going to be universally used. One of the questions has come in a couple times. How might you give recommendations to your colleagues, or what are you doing to get the approvals necessary, or bring the faculty and the administration along with, you know, your conclusions? Any insight on how you've gone to administration and gotten support for the plans that you want to implement?
Well, for us, we were able to, as I mentioned earlier, we were able to boil it down real simple and just put the decision in the hands of those that would be either having to provide the funds or approve the funds. And so by keeping it real simple, say here's what you're able to do and what you're able not to do. We kept a lot of the details in the background. We didn't talk about ceiling mics or any of that kind of stuff. We just basically said here's what you're enabled to do and not in each of these, and then being able to you know, here's the cost that's associated with it, and it's really we really put it in the hands. And at that point, I think what you're doing is you're empowering the campus president or the leader or the administrator in other people's cases to really think about the teaching and the learning and say, okay, what's going to make the most amount of sense from the interaction that I can have with my students, and then compare that to the budget that may or may not be available. And getting that done fast, because the one fixed thing we all have, I think in most cases, is time, and especially if people are preparing for the fall. It doesn't get, so the longer it takes you to kind of get there, it's going to necessarily shorten the time frame. Earlier, you had asked who's planning to go back. I kind of laughed because it's some of my colleges are going back, and some of them don't know, because there's just, in addition to the government, there's so many other factors into this. So absolute planning for hybrid across the board. We want to be there. And if we're not there, we want to get there anyway. I think that this is helping us to prove that we can do it. And who knows what the future is going to bring. But yeah, I think what we're going to find, at least in some cases, is that people won't know a month from now. They may still be waiting to see what the final decision is going to be.
Right.
For me, it was quite a challenge, because even if as I sit here and I probably spit it out what I have in mind and the plan I have, there's probably an attendee in here that's like, I still don't know what the heck you're talking about, and I can't envision it. And some people work like that, and that was a challenge for me, is trying to get everyone on board, trying to get administrators, trying to get leadership on board to see it and to a certain degree, which is why I made that video, so they can see exactly sort of how this could work. And it's a challenge, because yes, I raised my hand because we have plans. All that can change.
Right.
Well, this is our plan, but there's some we can be dictated to say no. No one's allowed back. But the biggest challenge here is really, there's a lot of question marks still. Like, are we going hybrid or not? And I think the reason why this hybrid thing comes up, because this is the most challenging thing to probably plan for. Like I said at the beginning, if we stay home, we're kind of already doing that.
Right.
To then enhance a lot of it. But I think a lot of people are sort of used to the idea of it. Some people are not fans of it, but if, we're not going to have a choice, then we're not going to have a choice. But at the end of the day, I think that's how I was able to convince and see, for them to see exactly what the solution could entail, what a hybrid classroom could look like. And again, it's sort of a question mark. They have a question mark. I have a question mark. There's questions, and I was just here to try to provide this is what it could look like, and
Right.
do with it as you want. And if we use it or we don't use it, at least it's there.
Right. You've done your job. And we are kind of heading towards the top of the hour here, but a number of folks have asked, how much is the kind of consideration of the health concerns factoring into the actual solutions that you're doing? We've talked about touchless. There was a question about whether people feel that they're going to need to pre-scan for temperature of people coming into their facilities. Have you been tasked with any of those kind of considerations, or is it really just like instructional solutions that you've been dealing with?
I think it's all intertwined. So instruction, you have somebody up in front projecting. All of our instruction is very intimate. When you think about interaction and collaborative learning, that's a close in factor thing. And so I don't think you can have an effective discussion on pedagogy without thinking about the health aspects of that. And it ties back to the decision making. Who are the decision makers? Well, it's a collaborative effort. It's actually, if we pull in the right people, we begin to get a complete picture of what things need to change in the classroom, what needs to change about our instruction, and what needs to change of our facilities and procedures. And it really is reliant on everybody working together, because there isn't enough facilities people to clean the classrooms in between every single use. So people need to self-clean. We need to reduce furniture so that we can social distance. I know one of the questions was, how much capacity are you getting out of a room? Well, between 20 and 40% once you get down to that social distancing, especially in those large lecture halls. We're dropping from 280 students to 40, but it's still into the faculty's responsibility to make sure people are spread out and considering the health factors.
Yeah, thank you for answering that ratio, because that is a question that a lot of folks are kind of, is it 50-50? It sounds like it's less than 50% you can hope to accommodate in your designs before.
I wanted to insert in here that I'm kind of looking at that's sort of the health leads, you know, it leads everything, right? It's health first, safety first, and everything sort of falls within that umbrella. I'm looking at my facilities department's shared sheet here, and you know, we're considering daily temperature screenings. Again, that's what we're considering, with the possibilities of monthly tests. Again, just laying out ideas here. The interesting one here, where under masks, faculty to wear face shields during instruction only, masks otherwise. That's interesting. I never thought about a face shield, and you know, here it's talking about sort of the mask and how you can't see me, or you know, it's hard to tell, you know, what I'm saying with covering my mouth. A face shield, I don't know. That's an idea. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to share it or not, but it's interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, I agree. Kind of intelligibility, the ability to project, even get the nonverbal, you know, communication from the body language. That's very interesting to me. We have 2 minutes left, so it's been a very quick hour, and you know, it sounds like it's still early, but you're planning furiously. When we prepped for this call a couple days ago, just I'll share is I was surprised by the sense of urgency that everybody seemed to feel like we have to really move fast. So one of the things I was hoping to communicate to the audience is, if you've kind of been laying back, you know, I think you used the term arms race, or Jose, which I found interesting, because, you know, institutions like yours are collegial, but there could be a case where when it gets to the end of the summer and you've made your decisions and you go to get stuff, everybody's, you know, in that rush. And I don't know if it's going to be like toilet tissue, but, you know, there may be shortages and just resources, people-wise, that come in and install. And we're certainly concerned about that as a partner to these institutions. Is, you know, how do we scale up quickly, having been scaled back, especially with the new additional needs that weren't even anticipated. Does anybody have just like a last 10-second thing they want to offer to our audience before we wrap? Word of wisdom to the wise.
Someone asked. Oh, go ahead, Rudy.
Sorry, John. I was just saying, just continue to listen, you know, to faculty, and you know, try to meet them, you know, halfway, and provide as many resources, and be adaptable.
I was going to say something very similar. I mean, understand the pressure that the administrators are on, that the teachers are under right now. You know, we're going to be a big part of the solution, but you know, when it seems frustrating that our plans are changing and shifting, we need to understand that so are theirs.
I was going to say, somebody asked about how you approach the administration to get them to make a decision. I think one of the most successful things that was told to me by a former provost was, don't ask for me any questions, just present a solution, and then I can say yes or no. And I think that's incredibly onerous on us as technologists to offer a solution. Sometimes it feels a little uncomfortable, especially when it touches on health stuff that maybe we're not used to touching on that. But I think as long as we can come quickly with solutions and be prepared to adjust and flex based on what those answers are, I think you can continue to move quickly, and you won't need to enact, a 10-person committee and have discussions and wait for an answer.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank our panelists from these very fine institutions for joining us and sharing their insights. It sounds like our audience members, it's still a work in process, but there's quite a bit of progress and been made. And we will share this video out to our attendee list. We'll also make sure we share the video that Jose shared in the chat if you didn't get a chance to see it. Really appreciate you joining us, both panelists and attendees, audience members. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say that, we'd like to be part of the solution. So if you need help, reach out to us or people like us who are having the benefit of talking to numerous institutions. And, our goal is to try to share as many best practices as possible with our customer base. And that's what we were trying to do today. So thank you so much for joining us for our event today. And be well, and we'll see you hopefully back in the classroom. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.